Today's speaker is Juan from the ARC National. So take it away.
Sweet, thank you. I'm just gonna share can you give me screen sharing permissions really quick?
Yep. Sorry about that.
Oh, all good.
Okay, should be good now.
Well, hello everybody. Everyone can see the slides fine? Yes, no?
Yes.
All right, solid. Well, my name is Juan. I'm a policy associate at the ARC of US. So we have various chapters throughout the US, but I work for the national office out in DC area. So if you're in the area, let me know. We'll get coffee or something. But that's where I'm based out of, so the DC area. But we do have chapters nationwide. So we have like the ARC of Wisconsin. We have various chapters that are led in the local area too. I'm not sure if you're familiar. Some people at the ARC of Wisconsin, but we have like Deb Seibel, who works there. She's the latest executive director for that chapter. And if you haven't met her, really good opportunity to really meet her.
She's my boss.
Yeah,
One of my bosses.
exactly. And she's fairly new, so I imagine she's getting familiar with the state of Wisconsin. So just a lot of work to be done everywhere. And one of the work that I do here at the ARC is lead our National Council of Self-Advocates with my co-chair, Chloe. She is a self-advocate. She sits on the board of the ARC of US. She's really awesome and interactive, and she's helped me do a lot of phenomenal work with the National Council of Self-Advocates. But I just want to make sure I present what the council is more than anything, because it's just something that I keep saying, but we really should get into what exactly it is. So as an agenda, I'm just going to do an introduction on myself. I'm going to and the value of shared living experience, and then go from there. So as for myself, my name is Juan. I help facilitate it with NCSA with Chloe. I do policy and advocacy work. So I do a lot of our policy work and then some portfolios, and then I do our advocacy work, like reaching out and building coalitions, making sure that we reach out to everybody. And I also really love my dog and my family. And there's a picture of my dog right there. Her name is Cebul. It's short for Cebollita, which is Spanish for onion, because if you look at her, she kind of looks like an onion. Like the browns and the whites, like that's why we named her Onion. So what is NCSA? It's the National Council of Self-Advocates. There are various other self-advocacy chapters that are unique to the ARC, but a lot of times what the ARC does, they partner with like People First chapters and have self-advocates from the ARC go to People First like this one and be able to build coalitions of self-advocacy networks there too. But we have those around the nation, and when we have like the larger national one that we have. And thank you, Julie. No, she's a really cute dog. I'm really lucky. When we first got her from the shelter, she didn't have a lot of her hair. So thankfully, she got better and she grew out her fur coat, and it looks really amazing now. But she had a bunch of bald spots when we first caught her. So yeah, but so with the National Council of Self-Advocates, it's an idea of like, okay, well, we have all our state chapters and we have these local chapters of self-advocacy networks, but we wanted to make sure that we have like a nationwide too, to like really get everyone together, to make sure that we're representative of people throughout the nation. So we have various people from various states. We have people from like Maryland, from Texas, from Wisconsin, from Oregon, from California. And we just wanted to make sure that we facilitate a national conversation, because sometimes issues that are happening in Wisconsin might be happening in Colorado, and there could be a conversation about how those issues are being talked about. If there's any work that can be done together to work on these issues, that's something that we should also talk about. So that's just something that we really wanted to facilitate that conversation. And the only requirement for being a member of the National Council of Self-Advocates is being a person with a disability. We want to make sure it's a space for people with disabilities, and making sure that there's a space for people with disabilities to have those conversations, rather than have a bunch of people in there. And we want to make sure it's a unique space where we could talk about that and be able to advise in that capacity. Which brings me to my next slide. is we also have a group of officers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Nathaniel, but Nathaniel is one of our NCSA officers. So with officers, there's a handful of them that are elected, and the elections are coming up. So if you want to, place an application to become an NCAS officer, I really do welcome that. And I'll share more information about that as we approach that season. But they have more responsibilities, and they have their own meetings where they also advise the ARC on what it does in some policy areas, where if there's a specific area or if there's a television ad that's occurring, sometimes NCSA officers will be invited to like advise on, hey, how does this ad look? How does these documents look? How does this presentation look? It's just making sure that they're just regularly consulted on these issues. Also being able to attend conventions, another thing that we allow for our officers to do by extending scholarships to them, just so they have the opportunity to attend convention and build a better community within the ARC, and also participate in convention sessions as well. It's something that we really want to make sure we give our NCSA officers a leadership responsibility with the NCSA and also within the larger ARC organization. So that's really exciting. I mean, we're having it soon in November, so I'm not sure if Sydney's going to go, but I know the idea of the convention is to make sure that we just have like a larger national like convention where we just facilitate conversations on how these things are working out, and to be able to bring NCSA officers to it is a really big benefit. It's just so we could really incorporate them into the programming and making sure there are opportunities for people with disabilities within the various panels. And as I mentioned, they are advised fairly frequently on a monthly basis from the larger thing. So not just officers, but everyone within NCSA. So most recently we had Foundation come by and talk about their work, and they were able to facilitate a conversation with the NCSA about like, hey, this is the work that we're doing. How can we do it better? What's your feedback on this? And then we had Bethany from the ARC's policy team come on by and be able to talk about home and community-based services on the policy end. And then being able to have a conversation on like, hey, here's some things that you should be mindful of, that you should be, considering when you're talking about HCBS. And that was a whole other discussion where we were able to facilitate that through NCSA. And then we're also able to have our officers come by. So this September, in like 6-7 days, we're going to have one of our NCSA officers talk about his own story and how he got started with advocacy, where as a self-advocate, when he first started, how his journey went, how he started, really learning about how to tell a story, to where he's at now. His name is Bob. He's really active in Ohio within the self-advocacy movement, and he regularly goes to the state legislature and federal legislature to really use this story for advocacy purposes. So he's going to share his story, and then someone from the ARC, Jenny, is going to come on by afterwards to share about opportunities at the ARC, where if you wanted to like really share your story for advocacy, we want to make sure that we just make sure that those resources are available to everyone. So if that is something that interests you, I'm happy to share that invitation to. That's going to be held next week, and it'll just be a conversation about storytelling. So if you're interested, it's something that I'll share afterwards too. And they meet monthly. So
Yeah.
we're meeting in September, we're meeting in October, and then just regularly meeting from there. So examples of involvement within NCSA. So sometimes we are reached out to about certain opportunities. So being one of the largest disability rights organizations, we really have a vast network. So sometimes our partners will reach out to us asking for speakers like, hey, do you have anyone from Wisconsin or Ohio that could come speak on this panel about these issues? Or if you have someone that is involved with voting rights, if you have someone that could come speak on this panel about their experience. So we regularly do get reached out to for these opportunities. And that's something that we regularly share with our NCSA council, where we are able to identify, hey, while Julie is involved in this, we should, recognize that and have people reach out to her if they wanted to like have those conversations. And we do advise regularly on policy issues where we have people come in from the policy team to NCSA to solicit feedback on their policy platform. If they're talking about Social Security, if there's any issues particularly that people with disabilities could recognize, we want to make sure we give a space where they could really give feedback in a safe environment that directly benefits the ARC and is able to then be leveraged in those conversations that go into the advocacy work. So that's something that we regularly do, especially because we have a good amount of like policy portfolios and also our policy and position statements. That's something that has been really helpful. I mean, as a part of the policy team as well, to be able to like look at feedback and saying, hey, what more could we really incorporate? What are some like perspectives? Because sometimes DC is like so far away and like its own little bubble. It's really helpful to get feedback from people throughout the nation if they have their own unique experiences with things. It's just invaluable to be able to have NCSA provide feedback from a national lens. So that's what we do sometimes. In regards to like TV ads that I have listed, the ARC does sometimes promote on like television, and we want to make sure that those conversations are just being considered with people with disabilities beforehand, especially if they're like, hey, like I don't like how this scene looks, I don't like how this wordage looks, this is insensitive, this is inconsiderate, this is, you know, tokenism. We want to make sure that we provide a space where that can be comfortably expressed and that feedback could be incorporated into, you know, the TV ads and programming that we do. So I'm gonna drop the link in the chat right now, but we do have a form online if anyone would be interested in joining. I guarantee you we're a good bunch of folks. So if you want to come on by, our first meeting is next week, but
Yeah, I think I'm a part of the National Council of Self-Advocates. I just haven't attended a meeting in a long time. Because
yeah,
it's been busy.
no, I mean, just whenever really, we are trying to like meet regularly just so people have different opportunities. We're trying to meet like later in the day, earlier in the day to see like what works best with folks. Just because I know people have different schedules, especially nationally where we have some Alaska folks coming in too. Yeah, Ramsey?
Hey, Juan. Thanks for being here. You said your first meeting was next week. What? Do you have a date and time for next week? And
Yeah, let
is
me,
it
yeah,
a,
it will be, let me just double check. I'm getting my, it would be the 27th at 3 p.m. And I could send that information afterwards too, as well as the PowerPoint and what we'll be covering within it too, if you want to look at it ahead of time. And even if you aren't able to attend, I do send out a recording of it afterwards to people, just so if they wanted to like look at the presentation of what they missed out on. If they can't make one meeting, maybe they'll go to the next one, but they still want to see what the last meeting was about. I do just send out that information to everybody just so they have it in their hand.
okay, thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for your question. Anybody else have any questions?
So do we contact you to get on like your email list? Because I happen to know, not to speak for Ramsey, but Ramsey and I have a meeting next Tuesday at that time, but because that would be the 27th, but we might both be interested in the future. So
Yeah, so it would be Eastern time, so I'm not sure. That would be
that
2
might
p.m.
change. But yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be like 2 p.m. your time from, I think everyone's in Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, if anything, I could send you the invitation, put you on our list. So if you can't make this meeting, at least you can get the follow-up where we had the recording of the meeting and there are future meetings, and you could just be on that information. And if it works out better, just get that stuff too.
Yeah. Ramsey, is it okay if I put your email in the chat for Juan? He's on mute.
Yeah,
I'll just put mine in for now. And
yeah, and then I did put the bit.ly link where it links to our online form to join. But if you want to just give me your email, I could add you to that way. Whatever works best, to be honest.
thank you.
No problem. And then with the NCSA, it is really centered on advocacy. We want to make sure that our advocacy is informed a lot by people with disabilities and self-advocates, and making sure that our policies are being considered of that. And if there are opportunities to really elevate those opportunities, we want to make sure that we just facilitate that as best we can. And it's a very conscious effort here at the ARC, and we want to make sure that we just do as much outreach as we can. So that's why I always really like the opportunity to be able to like go to different chapters and go to People First Wisconsin now and be really able to explain what we do. If people do have questions, I really want to make sure I just clarify if they have any questions, if they're interested, or
I know earlier, Ramsey's still on mute. Maybe he's having difficulty getting off, but Ramsey had some questions about the national conference.
yeah, so it would be,
And I
yeah,
think I think he got booted for that part of your presentation. So maybe just go back over that for him.
yeah, of course. So our national convention is held in different locations throughout the different years. This year it's gonna be in Denver, Colorado. But what it is, it's just sessions that we have that on various issue areas and topics. Like I know this year I'm doing the National Council of Advocates Symposium, which will have a criminal justice focus. And we're going to be talking about like 988 resources and how to navigate that. And then also making sure that we have a panel on like supporting self-advocates in leadership roles. We're going to have our NCSA officers help out with the programming behind that, and making sure that there is a good conversation on how to really support self-advocates in leadership roles, what could be done better, what has been done effectively, and just making sure that we have that conversation, because the people who attend convention are like families, but also like ARC staff and also people in leadership at ARC staff. And I think I just would really appreciate having a panel discussion on how to support self-advocates in leadership roles. And with, you know, the ARC staff being there, being able to like listen and really get feedback from self-advocates, rather than like, oh, I heard this, I heard that. I'd rather there be a direct conversation. And that's just two of the topics among the many that are going to be at convention. So that's gonna be at Denver in November. And that's just two of the topics that we'll be discussing, among many others, where it's just more informing best practices and facilitating these conversations in the national setting, but in a way that we could reach out to a lot of people and have these conversations. So I'm not sure if that was like Ramsey's question, or if you wanted more information on it, I'm happy to share it.
Thank you very much, Juan, and thank you very much, Julie. The meeting next week is at 2 Central or 3 Central?
It's 2 p.m.
2 Central.
Yeah, 2 p.m. Central.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem. I mean, I'm happy to share that information, but also if this one can't make it, but another one you'd want to make it, that would be something that would be this available if you just go onto our listserv, and we can get the recording for the upcoming meeting if you want to revisit any of it, and also future meetings too.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and Sydney gets the emails probably, and
Yep.
she could tell you that we just regularly communicate. We get the PowerPoints out to everyone in advance. We have like reminders of like the day of, you know, hour before, and we do a follow-up, and then we just communicate in advance as far as possible when we do get the date for the next meeting. We don't have a fixed time because we do invite a lot of speakers from other organizations too, and sometimes their schedule gets weird, so we want to make sure we're just flexible, but generally share that information as soon as we can for the next meeting. Well, on that note, I just want to say thank you everyone for listening to me. If anybody wants to talk or make comments or ask me questions, more than happy to answer them now. Or if you want to just email me or drop them in the chat, whatever works best with you.
Sounds good. Um,
Yeah, I know. So People First Wisconsin, I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask some follow-up questions. Because I'm really interested because I know People First. I've met with a couple of People First chapters, and I know People First Wisconsin has like a good amount of like staff too, which is really cool. I know like Nathaniel's there, I know Sydney's there,
On
and I
Mira.
know Julie's there.
Mira works for us too. Like we, Cindy Bentley, our executive director, really believes in
Hmm.
hiring folks with disabilities. So we might all have different roles or different amounts of hours, different positions, but she really wants to hire folks with disabilities so we can have jobs.
What is,
Hey, Lindale.
yeah, I'm just on break.
Oh, unfortunately, you missed a good presentation by Juan, but you can
Really?
watch the video. Yeah, he was talking about the ARC, and
Yeah, like just what we do at the ARC, but we have a National Council of Self-Advocates, so we just make sure that people with disabilities have their perspectives included within the conversations at the ARC. And that's just one way we facilitate that by having monthly meetings and different opportunities to make sure that our work is just informed by people with disabilities. So there's no disconnect of one person speaking for another group and everything like that. It's just,
Hmm.
it's never a good thing to do, you know? I don't want to
Right.
assume. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Hi,
yeah.
I'm Lindale. Hi, nice meeting you.
I guess I have a question. I'm always curious how people got involved with like the disability movement and how you kind of came to be involved with the disability movement.
Yeah, absolutely. So my brother has a disability. He has auditory processing disorder, so it's a learning disability. But he's the youngest of three, so I'm his older brother, and then my older sister is like several years older than him and I. So it's just like a
Okay.
weird. It's a gap, and
Yeah.
like so like we're really close because of that. Not
Yeah.
that my sister isn't great, but it's just there's a gap, and it's just.
So that happens.
Yeah, so I think just like having gone through school together, seeing like different learning styles and like really learning to like adapt with like, hey, my brother learns by like this is his disability, this is IEP, this is how these things are. And it
Yeah.
just felt like really weird because like sometimes teachers would be like, oh no, and I'm like, that's not no, like you can't like.
Mhm.
Oh, especially because it's my younger brother.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
The
think,
Ram.
yeah.
No, it's always good to know, and because we get a lot of questions. I think like probably the most common that we get about the ARC is how is the ARC a little bit different from People First? Because we have a lot of like in Wisconsin, we have a lot of overlap staff. So like Sydney and Nathaniel, like are a part of you guys in significant ways, and yet they also work for us. So my general understanding is like, that they've always worked side by side, but that like People First is very much like specifically run by the self-advocates. Not that you guys don't make an effort to, but that was one of the big differences that I usually tell people. But they've always worked together.
Absolutely. And I think that's like a really big thing to make, an observation about. And I think that, the ARC should absolutely hire more people with disabilities, and it should be more representative of that. Like that's like a fundamental
folks in
belief
your
of mine.
position with like family ties, because I feel like
Yeah.
the programs like that we have for like supports here in the I know, for example, like we have an IRIS program, which is like our Medicaid waiver, but I specifically chose my support person, like because I could choose like who was gonna help me specifically because in their bio they said they had a sibling with a disability, like, and I was like, oh, okay, like they're gonna understand a little bit where I'm coming from because they grew up with it. So even if I can't pick someone from the like a community of self-advocates, a
Mhm.
lot of times I'm a lot more comfortable with someone who knows and is a little
Yeah.
more naturally aware of like the microaggressions and things like that that happen to our community.
Exactly.
So,
And I think that's like something that like as like a sibling I felt really passionate about in my own advocacy work. And yeah, I like criminal justice reform. I like other
Yeah.
policy areas too, but I like disability advocacy because it really resonates with me on like a personal level. And like I know like when I got my brother for the first time to vote, it was like a whole process. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't just my brother. This is like a larger conversation among people with disabilities who like have had so like it was an overwhelming decision making process. And my
Yeah.
brother, you know, struggles with some decision making processes. Like whenever we go out to eat, usually we get the menu in advance. Usually we like are, you know, told like, hey, like this is what is available at this location. Like, you know, let's just be foreshadowing that rather than like have him show up to the restaurant and not know what's available and then him have him to be like overwhelmed by the decisions. Just like conscientious things that like are just incorporated.
right.
I think that's like a large conversation, even with like voting, where like my brother's like, okay, like there's like a million things to vote for. Like what what I know like 2 or 3.
Do you guys, where you're at, do you guys have like a supported decision making alternative to guardianship type stuff? Because like here in Wisconsin, I don't know if you know Jordan Anderson.
No, I'm not too familiar with Jordan.
He is active in People First and a couple other parts of Wisconsin, but he's done a lot of work for supported decision making, which is like basically it's an alternative to guardianship where people who have like need support in sometimes making decisions can choose people to support them. Like, but it might just be like my brother helps me with my like medical decisions or my housing decisions, but not, you know, not necessarily like take people's rights for say voting or something like that.
Yeah,
A
I feel
cool
like
thing that Wisconsin's developed.
that is really cool, like, especially because like some states have like such weird voting laws around that, and like it's good that like there's a good example to look at within Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just
Where,
maybe
where are you from, Juan?
I'm from California.
Are you? What part?
I'm from Los Angeles area, so
Oh, nice, nice. What do you think of the Queen Mother? Have you been watching it?
no,
wow.
I haven't.
It was neat. It was really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to find some time to watch it. I do grad school too in the evening. So between that and that, I just get tired and I just go to bed at as early as possible.
Is that grad school out in DC where
Yeah, exactly. Out in DC.
okay.
We have a self-determination conference coming up at Wisconsin Dells in Wisconsin.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Who does with disabilities. So you're more welcome to come. It's October 17th through the 19th.
October 17th to the 19th.
Yeah, it's Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities, which Sydney sits on their board. Where we're running through all of Sydney's hats, but
Hi, Sydney.
they host our largest self-advocate conference of the year at the Wisconsin Dells, which is a big like tourist place in our state. And we all get to go and hang out, and we haven't been in person for like 3 years, so everyone's real excited.
No, it is exciting. I know our convention's the first time in like since 2019 or something.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it's like a weird thing. But it's okay. I mean, whatever is like safer sometimes. Like we're just like, even with our other things, we're like, okay, maybe we could do like a hybrid thing, but I don't know. It gets complicated.
Yeah.
I've been watching Big Brother too, out in California.
The hybrid thing has been really not like it's been I obviously understand where we got it from and why we did it, but it's been a very good option for folks with disabilities because I know I face some transportation barriers, and so or just allowed me to be involved in like a lot more things than I guess I would have been, because if you have to always consider travel time, sometimes now I can at least hop onto a meeting and like do this meeting and then go immediately to another meeting when I'm done, whereas in pre-COVID times that wouldn't have been as much of an option. So
Yeah.
It was nice meeting you. I gotta go. Thanks over.
all right, thanks for joining us, Lindale.
It was nice
Thanks,
meeting you.
Adele. Nice meeting you.
Okay, go Big Brother. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
And Lindell.
All right, bye, Jo.
Yeah, I know I've seen like Chaz come in and out of camera, but
Yeah.
nice to meet you, Chaz. Okay, well, thank you for clarifying what People First does. It really is helpful because like there's like I've met Cindy. We had her at our NCSA meeting like 2 meetings ago,
Okay.
or like 1 meeting ago. I lose track to be honest, but we had Cindy and she talked about like how she found a job and like gave advice on like self advocates looking for jobs and like how she navigated that. And Nathaniel helped facilitate that conversation.
She is an amazing woman. If you ever get an opportunity to read her biography, she's
Mhm.
written. She got out of the institutions 30 years ago,
Mhm.
and has been living independently, and now got, what was it? Voted one of the top 25 Black leaders in Wisconsin or something just a few like months ago, and yeah, she's absolutely like, I don't know. I'm a big Cindy fan. I'm happy to work
Yeah.
for her, but like, she's just a sweetheart, and her story is really powerful. And what she's come up from, and what she's been able to do for others.
Exactly. And that's why, because I read her biography, like, okay, we should panel Cindy. 'Cause she has a really robust life, and I feel like others need to hear it because some people are scared about like, hey, like what accommodations could be made, like how these conversations look like. So that's why we had someone from Respectability, someone from ARC of Alaska, who is a self advocate, who is an advocacy manager there, and then we had someone who with a physical disability talk about his accommodations, and it was like a good conversation, just like really have the idea of like, hey, like this is like the things that Cindy went through. This is like some of the advice that she gives, and this was Rick, and then this was Ben. So I really liked having Cindy, and like getting to know her through that process. She was
I
really
think
awesome.
the really cool and powerful thing that you guys are doing correctly is your cross category disability, because I think so many times organizations kind of focus on one or the other, and I don't think Chaz will mind me saying this, but Chaz identifies as deaf, and then like we're supported and run by a Cindy who has an intellectual disability.
Mhm.
So it's like, it's really nice sometimes when people who have a wide range of disabilities can come together and like advocate for the similar things.
Yeah, exactly. Like I know a big part of one of our chapters that we work with is not chapter organization is ADAPT, which is people with like physical disabilities, and they're really active in like Social Security and like Medicaid issues. So I know it's always just like and
But I
not
think you guys are a
yeah,
nice like meeting point. That's what I always usually
yeah,
tell
exactly.
people, is like that's one of your strengths. Because people are always like, well, what do they do different? And it's like, well, they do a lot more of the like national legislation, and but we historically, and you can correct me if you, Sydney or Juan, it's like I'm always curious, because that's biggest answer or biggest question I get is like, what do they do different, or like what am I going to sort of be exposed to that's a little different than People First? And
Mm.
they both serve an important purpose.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I like People's First structure. I definitely like how like there's like a cross disability intersectional lens through it. I think that's like really, really awesome. Like personally, I think that's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. I think it makes us stronger, because what's the saying? If you're not on the dinner table now, like, basically they're coming for you. If you let them, attack other people, then you soon will be attacked too. If you're not on the dinner table now, you will be later. If you're not on the menu, whatever.
Exactly. And that's why I've been like really intentional with my work with NCSA to make, hey, like we need to consult, we need to advise, we need to like bring them to their dinner table too. So we're not making decisions and doing all these things without including people with disabilities. If we do, it's just, no, that's not who we are. We could do better,
Yeah. Ramsey, did you still have your hand up from earlier, or did you have comment?
That's from earlier.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm not sure, Sydney, how many hats did you wear? I'm just wondering now.
Yeah. Yeah, I can sort of talk about that. So one of my hats is I'm a social media assistant for the ARC Wisconsin. And then I'm a outreach self-advocate for People First Wisconsin. And then I'm on the board for people with developmental disabilities, BPDD. That's another hat. I'm trying to think of the rest. And yeah, I just do a lot of advocacy in general too. I know that I think I have at least 4 or 5 hats. I'm just blanking at the moment.
Okay, that's really good to know. One thing that I will just mention to everyone, but I am leaving the ARC actually, and like a week from now.
Okay.
But I was just thinking, I was like, Sydney, you should come to NCSA and give a presentation. I,
You're not the first one to say that either. So yeah,
So you
it's on
should.
my possible to-do list.
Okay, I'll tell Jenny. Jenny's gonna take over NCSA. She's really awesome too. She taught me a lot about what I know now. So
Yeah,
Where are you
Yeah.
headed?
Deb knows the
Really?
possibility too.
I'm going to Caring Across Generations. It's another disability organization, but they do also like aging caregiving.
Okay.
So it's like caregiving for people with disabilities, caregiving for aging adults, and then caregiving for younger children. So they do like childcare policy, disability policy, and aging policy. So
Awesome.
I still stay in disability, but I also
No,
talk about
That's
aging.
cool. I mean,
Yeah.
again, like I said, when you can cross over and you can like build bridges with common needs, it's always a good idea. So that's cool. What are you eating, Chaz? Chaz always eats on our meetings. So, guy.
I was wondering if it's possible to get one's contact information or the phone number for the National ARC office.
Contact information for you or maybe the person that's gonna be taking your place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll send a follow-up email to Sydney with like the PowerPoint slide and like my contact information and the form if you want to like share it or fill it out later. Like I'll just follow up with Sydney too, just so she can make that available to everybody. As long
Okay,
as
cool.
well as with the recording too. Like,
Yeah.
what are you eating?
See, everybody gets interested. He always has interesting sodas for us too. Let me ask him in the chat. So, what?
I think it's like meat. Well, right.
This happens. He comes to every meeting. He's super, and he always has something interesting he's eating. Right, Chaz? See if he answers us.
I think he might be typing. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it looks like it, possibly.
Yeah.
Yep, chicken, mashed potatoes. He writes a direct message to me, so sorry, I'm gonna voice this. Chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. I mean, all right.
It's a good mix. It's a good mix. You have like vegetables, you have chicken, you have mashed potatoes. Okay, now that I'm sorry, but I'm actually, I know People First has like different roles. What does like each role do? Or like, I'm just not too familiar with like, I know like, yeah, like what does like Mira do? Or like, I'm just curious.
Mira, do you want to tell them what you do for People First?
Well, I am an office aide,
So she helps
so I
keep us all in line and do our data entry and all that fun stuff.
I am an office aide. You know, if Cindy and Julie could send me the attendance and I don't get.
Right. So and
So yes, so my job is always a two-stepper project because someone needs to send me stuff so I can do my job.
And then tell us, hey, you need to send me the things so I can enter them. Yep. She's good at that.
Yeah.
Though. You're doing great.
Like for today's meeting, someone need to for tomorrow, so I don't
And
get
then
bored out of my
I
mind.
know what Sydney does. She runs this.
Yep. Yeah, I run the speaker series, and then Julie and I have the same title, I'm pretty sure. Could be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I run the speaker series. I work on some parts of the grant. And I just do a lot of outreach stuff. Like I run some various Facebook groups that help people with disabilities and their family members get information and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's really helpful to know.
And
'Cause-
then, oh, go ahead.
No, it's because people ask me a lot, like, oh, we want to start a self-advocacy group. Oh, we want to start this. How do we? I'm like, why don't you just? It's difficult, you know.
Yeah. So as Sydney mentioned, like technically our titles are the same. So I'm sorry, Sydney, if I'm just so used to being here and like talking because
That's fine.
we run the same. So I run a bi-weekly meetup. So she does a speaker series where she gets info in, and she does a lot more of the what do you call it, like agency side of it, whereas I do like meetups. So it's just me and the advocates, and I just kind of, we do one at the beginning of the week and at the end of the week, just kind of see how everybody's doing and like bringing stuff to our attention. And Sydney supports me in those, like if I need a day off. So like we do kind of interchangeably. I think our title is actually like outreach self-advocate. I think that's our official titles. But like our jobs are a little bit different, but they run very like similar or parallel. So we got a DIF grant, which is a disability inclusion grant,
Yeah.
Borealis for 3 years. Sydney's new to the game. That's also probably why I'm talking a little bit, because I've been here 3 years. So I know what I'm like. I'm the most senior outreach advocate. Nathaniel's also, I think, an outreach advocate by title. He helps a lot with like our website and that whole piece. But basically we got the money during COVID to like help explain COVID to self-advocates. So what started as me just meeting with people to fight isolation for like with the meetups has turned into a speaker series, has turned into all these things, and we've hired more self-advocates to do that. And so, and just for reference, 'cause I can't identify as a person with a disability because I'm in a chair. Go ahead, Rams.
I'm sorry, if I could just interject, Brown is also on the call with his buddy Mark, and Lawrence is a board member from South Milwaukee, so we just thank everybody for their support, yeah?
Yep. Did everybody understand that?
Yeah.
So sometimes Mira has a little bit of a harder time, so that's why. Rams, you care if I just summarize it again a little bit?
Go ahead.
Ramsey just mentioned that Larry's also on the phone with his buddy Mark from South Milwaukee. Larry is one of our board members. So for People First, as is Ramsey. And Ramsey lives in Hudson, Wisconsin, which is super north, almost in Minnesota. So we cover the whole state from, Milwaukee, Madison, which is the state capital, all the way to the northern parts of our state. So
what would you like if someone wanted to start like meetings with like self-advocates and people with disabilities? Like, what advice would you like generally give to them if they have nothing and they want to start something? Because I know that's at least like the early conversations that like people usually are just like, hey, we want to start having these conversations. How do we facilitate? How do we reach out? How do we, I know Sydney mentioned like Facebook groups. And I know there's like just different ways, but I'm just, because you have a really good structure.
Yeah, make sure that it's as people first, or we call it people first, or simple language as possible, so people know what to expect. So if they're interested in something, they can actually come and get like useful information for them, because I think sometimes people come and they don't really have in mind what they're like asking the advocates, or what they can share with the advocates. They just kind of speak above us a little bit sometimes. I don't mean that like in a rude way, I just mean it, so it's like making sure speakers or people that are going to facilitate the discussion make it so that it's accessible to everybody, like with closed caption and people first language and that kind of thing. The other thing is just start, like get a group of my meetups. When we started at COVID, I think I started with like a base group of 4 or 5 people, and then as they got comfortable being there, they brought their friends, and like now we don't see everybody every week, but or every meeting, but I would say we have a big group of maybe 20 different people.
Yeah.
That come in and out pretty consistent, like consistently enough that I could tell you like what is up with them and what they're working on and what they're doing. So I think like people always worry when they're starting a group, like, oh, I need a lot of people right away. No, you need like 3 or 4 like-minded people who just need to be consistent. And eventually, once they get some movement on something, people will come, because the disability community, it's very like network, like people wear a lot of hats. So I know Sydney from before my work at People First. So like, like, hey, there's a job here, or there's a position here, or we're doing this, like help support it. Is usually, I feel, how word gets out best, is like kind of just to start. I mean, I know that's not probably great advice, but like our community is such a way that sometimes it does take a little bit of time to get out, but once it does and you're consistent, I feel like people will come.
Yeah,
Okay.
I totally agree with Julie. But I mean, if it's just like a total random group of people, but that you wanted to connect and meet, you could do the social media route. Like I maybe 5 years ago started the Wisconsin Disability Connection Group, and I think we have maybe almost 700 people. But when I started working for Deb, we created the group Pass the Mic with Self Advocates group, and that maybe only has like 70, but we're getting more interaction, and that's just self advocates right now. But the one with 700 is a lot of family members. So it just depends on what you like to communicate.
Yeah.
Or how you want to communicate too.
My other thing would be like, try to grow, like, when they meet up, like have a passion. Like we have this program called Partners in Policy here in Wisconsin, also run by BPDD. That's where Sydney and I met. But that is a thing where they help you learn how to speak with legislators and write, legislators. And each of the classes that went through that, like kind of focused on a special area that was like special to the group as a whole. So it's like a group of some parents and some self-advocates, but they all went through this couple-week class together over the course of the year. And they all take on like a special legislative like cause. So for our class, it was getting adult size changing tables in more like public areas, like State Fair and things like that. Whereas the couple classes behind us actually had the hard task of trying to save our waiver program, our Medicaid waiver program, and did all that, so like, I guess a common cause too is sometimes really great, again, giving people a reason to come back. So like, what are you asking of people? Getting people, involved, and making sure if it's like the accommodations that they need to be involved or whatever, like, even if your group is small, it's like, hey, if someone's passionate about something, they're more likely to come back.
Okay.
But I agree with Sydney, like, because that Pass the Mic group that she started when she started working for ARC, you said it's at like 70 people now.
Yeah.
But I
just-
mean, I feel like it grows because we help her advertise it, and it's becoming its own like thing, you know, like separate from the other work that she's done. So, yeah.
Nice. That's really good to know. I mean, I always thought about like Facebook groups. We have one for NCSA, but it doesn't get that many interactions. So, and
Oh,
that,
if you need any ideas.
yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
she's gonna be your pro on Facebook interaction, because I'm even amazed at like some of the stuff. I'm like, hey, I posted a thing that looked like that, and Sydney's all over here. Like, I think it's probably just consistency there too. I would guess
Mhm.
is that they've come to know that Sydney posts all the things, and just keeping people's engagement. I think, you know.
For me, it's really tough because I'm on Facebook, but I'm barely on Facebook. So for me, it's tough to get those things, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like Facebook isn't the only thing. The other thing we started doing last year, and we've tried to use like mailers, and so sometimes it doesn't work as much as we'd like, but we put out a weekly thing that tells our advocates what's going to be going on at People First weekly in
Mhm.
one email, because I feel like, I don't know if you've experienced this one, but like disability world, you make good connections, but then everybody sends you an email, and every organization has something different. So maybe making it where whatever organization you're going to, like they send out more of a weekly, like whatever weekly is going on at that organization. Because if people care about what's going on at the ARC or wherever you're going to be headed or whatever, like they want to interact with your organization, it gives them a one email snapshot about what's going on for the week or the month
Yeah.
or whatever. Little more accessible in that sense, because then you can still send out those weekly reminders or whatever, but I feel like people's inboxes fill up and then they get ignored or whatever. So
No, it's true. I have like I'm on different ones, and I might always look at like the weekly one just because like okay, what's going to actually happen this week, and then
Mhm.
everything else. Not that I ignore it, but I definitely read the weekly just because it's like bullet points, like easy to read.
and that sort of that's where like I think the Facebook, for those who can access it, really shines, because it's like what is going on today, and like I don't know, like pin posts on Facebook are important because the algorithm makes it set, like they don't come in the order you post them, which is
Mhm.
really frustrating. So usually try to pin the things that are like happening that day or that morning
Mhm.
for,
Okay.
but yeah, because then folks with like vision challenges or who have very limited ability to get on the internet, like if they can
Mhm.
pin to the top, they're going to have a more likely chance to use it. We're going through that though, because as staff we're asking people like, hey, what, going into the new year, like what accommodation could we add on to what we're already doing to help you get the Zoom codes or get the whatever. And some people, it's going to be just making those like phone calls to them the day
Mhm.
before, or their texts, or Rams, you want to tell Juan a little bit about, I know we only have a few minutes, but about your Amazon Alexa?
yeah, like people who say got me an Amazon Alexa, and that helped me get in the Zoom meetings when I don't hit the wrong button.
Mhm.
So yeah, People First helped Ramsey get an Amazon Alexa, and it's got the voice controls on it, and you can actually load it on like a Google Calendar, and then assuming it works, because sometimes it's a little bug, but he can say like and like, what is it, Alexa, like enter my Zoom meeting, and then it
Mhm.
allows them to
Yeah.
come on, because previous to that, he was only limited to his phone. He still uses that as a good backup, and you're doing great, Rams. But like, it does allow him to be seen, and then it adds a lot of like accessibility features to his world too. So I think it's just important to like, figure out how people are accessing the Zoom
Mhm.
codes. We all, went crazy with Zoom codes, and not everybody has like a Google Calendar. And we've done, Sydney, I think we're going to do some more training on that, like the Google Calendars for folks. But I think it's just as important to teach self-advocates how to like stay organized in a way that works for them than it is to just keep sending them emails and sending them Facebook posts, because like certain people are going to gravitate towards one or the other. So like putting some effort into like that technology training has also been helpful.
Okay. That's really helpful to know, actually. Like, okay, because one, I have a Google thing. I'm not sure if you could do all that, but now I'm like really curious to see like what could you do besides telling me what my dog can and can't eat. I always ask like, can my dog eat grapes? Like, hey Google, can dogs eat grapes?
AKC.org, they say, the answer, and this goes for raisins too, which are just dried grapes, is easy. No, dogs should never eat grapes.
Oh.
Do you want a little more context?
No. But
I didn't know that, so I learned something.
well, that's because I give my dog likes eating whatever we're eating. So I'm always like, can my dog eat this? Can my dog eat this? Can my dog eat chicken tikka masala? I shouldn't be giving like.
I found it free on the
Oh
website.
my god, this Mira's laughing. No, that is pretty funny. I mean, that assistive technology really has changed the game for a lot of folks as well, as far as like keeping track or making lists, or Ramsey's Alexa also allows me to send what is the equivalent of a text message. So with my voice to him, we've been friends for a while, I can check on him. We can actually drop in on each other. Like, hey, I haven't heard from you in a minute. And he can just be like, I'm doing something. Leave me alone. That's never what he says to me. But it's really, really cool. So like trying to, as disability advocacy organizations, learn how to like interface with those technologies that are available, like especially the Amazon, that might be really good for elderly folks, where people like loved ones can check in on them. Or I have a Apple Watch that actually helps to run my wheelchair. So like there's crazy like technologies out there, and they not only end up helping to keep people organized, but they usually, for folks with disabilities, have like another benefit. And sometimes you can get them covered by programs or something because of that. So yay.
Cool. Well, it's been really lovely getting to know all of y'all. I really do appreciate you letting me present, and also just like hang out and talk with y'all and just ask all the questions I've always wanted to ask. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate it, because I always come across people first. I'm like, wait, I could actually just ask and get clarification and all that.
Yeah.
Because people do ask like, what's the difference? I'm like, I wish I knew more. Like, I'm curious.
Yeah, I definitely, if we see you across whatever you're doing, never hesitate to say hi, because appreciate all the good advocates out there.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, I learned a lot too, and I work for both organizations, so it's very informative.